welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian. This is a podcast for Christian women. Oh, this is not a good start, Carla. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts, and with me is Carla Moore, your other host. And this airs on April 15th, so happy Tax Day to everybody. To everybody. You know, we have a good little chat before we ever hit record, and sometimes we just crack ourselves up. And sometimes we don't get a handle on that when we actually hit record. So got a little bit of that going on this morning. Listen, before I ask how you're doing, I'm springing something on you.
Oh, great.
Yes. We have a challenge for you, Carla Moore.
Who's we?
While you're in Bowling Green this week, we challenge you to find something good and exciting at one of our thrift shops.
Oh.
While you're here. Now, I know you have a teeny tiny window. You're not really going to be here all that long, so it's going to be extra hard for you, but this is your superpower, and you're always finding good things, and we all feel like we have less than when it comes to thrift
Y'all
stores.
Are all going to go in and buy all the good stuff the day before and then leave me with nothing.
Maybe I'll have wonderful. To plant something. I love this idea. Sherry Simpson is the one who brought this up. We were talking about you coming in, and they were talking about your thrift finds, and she said we ought to challenge her to find something while she's in Bowling Green. So I was like, we're going to do that. That was a
challenge
great
accepted.
idea.
I don't know when I'll go, but that sounds like fun.
Yes, and if you find it while you're there, maybe you can show it during our session that we're recording.
Somebody has to tell John that I have to go now, because otherwise he's not going to believe me. I'm going to say I have to stop at Goodwill.
I know we're here for Equipped, but
this is very important.
This is part of our session. This is part of our Equipped session.
Yeah, this is biblical.
He's gonna say that's a new one.
Yeah, it is a new one.
That's a new one.
That sounds like fun.
So yeah, there's your challenge. And How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, doing great. We finished our fishing trip, so no one threw up. That was a good thing.
At the bend.
Someone always throws up. So this time nobody threw up, and that's always good. A positive. So it was fun. We went last Friday and came home on Monday after the eclipse, and that was very cool. I kind of regretted saying that I didn't understand the hype because it was super cool. You said it didn't get dark there?
No.
At all?
At least not where I'm at. We had cloud coverage. And so I went and stood outside, even though I wouldn't get a clear view. I went and stood outside anyway to experience it, and there was a part when it looked a little overcast before it was even supposed to peak. But here anyway, it just looked like it always does. Nothing changed.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that before. It was cloudy that day. The forecast was for clouds, and so we were afraid it was just going to be super cloudy, but the clouds burned off by about 10 o'clock that morning. And we were in sunshine, and about 1 o'clock or so, the clouds started rolling in, and we were thinking it's going to obscure everything. And we would get glimpses every now and again, put the glasses on, and you could see, what looked like the crescent moon, but it was a crescent sun. And I just didn't know what to expect, because that one in 2017 I thought was a total eclipse, but it got kind of funny colored outside, but it didn't get dark. But this was it was crazy. Like at I think the full eclipse was 135, 136. So like at 133, it started it was like sunset, but on hyperdrive. Just got dark. And then at 136, it was like 9:30 p.m. And everywhere you looked around the horizon was that, looked like sunset, which was strange because usually the sunset's only on one side. Anyway, it was just the neatest thing. And then, 3 minutes later, it's bright again.
Yeah, I saw John's picture that he took of Jordan taking pictures of the eclipse. That was a really cool shot. Yeah,
well, I didn't realize. I guess I kind of knew, but Jordan said that he'd been planning this for 7 years, since the 2017 eclipse. Wow. And wanting to be at the bend because he loves being there. But he wanted to get I don't know how he knew this, but he was thinking that and figuring that the sun would be right over the top of what we call Leaning Bluff, which is where they fish. And, the clouds, he didn't get a great view, but he got one that looked pretty spectacular to me with his camera. So anyway, it was a neat experience. And the kids, I don't think they were too little to really get how rare that was, but I enjoyed that. It was kind of a neat thing. It was really
well, if anybody's gonna get a good shot, it's gonna be Jordan. He is crazy talented.
Yeah, he
as
is.
a photographer.
Great photographer. He got some other pretty pictures. The wildflowers were just fully in bloom, and everything is so bright green and bright blue bonnets, and I don't know what the little red flowers and the yellow flowers, but everything was just like popping with color. So it's a beautiful time of year down here.
Yeah, and that's a pretty part of the country too.
Yeah, well, it's not so pretty in August, but there's some some beauty to it. It's just brown and dry, but anyway, it was good. We enjoyed the weekend. How are things there?
To do that. Just doing good. We're gearing up for Equip, so we're everybody's jumping in and getting things ready for everybody coming in this week. We're really excited. Been hearing from people from different states who are coming. So just it's we're all zoned in on that, and in some ways it's a lot of work, and you're kind of already looking forward to the day after. But when it's here, it's going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to the singing and seeing all the people and the food trucks and seeing you and John. So it's going to be fun.
Kelly posted last week in the group about the food trucks that will be there, so I was glad to see that. Yeah, this is kind of what this next couple of weeks is pretty crazy for us, but I was just telling somebody earlier today that the craziness is not so great, but I have looking forward to seeing you, and then the week after we're with y'all, we'll be in Chattanooga, and Michelle Massey will be there. I'll get to see her, and Martha Parker and several people. So always love to get to see the people. It's just the traveling and being in another bed. It's not the greatest thing, but I look forward to it. So it'll all be good. I meant to tell you this. I wrote this down and forgot to tell you about the fishing trip. They caught a catfish that had just swallowed another fish. And when it's a little bit gross, but when they gutted the fish, that whole fish was inside. I mean, they got pictures of when they cut it open, and it was a catfish. But what the fish that the catfish swallowed, John calls a Gasper goo. I don't even know what kind it is. He says there's another name for it, but his family's always called it a Gasper goo. It was crazy. And we know that kind of thing happens, but I've just never seen it like that. So it was.
Was the other fish dead?
Yeah. It was.
Well, he could have just swallowed it. I can't even do it. Can you do a fish face?
Me. I can, but not when I'm laughing. So can't. Yeah. So I just thought I'd drop that on you because I figured you like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Have you planted anything yet?
No. Hey, but our asparagus is already coming in.
From last year?
Yeah. Neil harvested several stalks this morning. So I'm going to serve some grilled asparagus with our soup tonight. But
what kind of soup are you making?
I'm making a soup with tomatoes and chicken and Parmesan and olive oil and lemon and stuff like that.
That sounds delicious.
Yes.
What's it called?
Dale and Janelle and Jude are coming over tonight, and they're doing keto right now. So I was trying to come up with something that would not mess up their keto thing. So it's called something Tuscan, chicken tomato Tuscan soup or something like that.
Sounds good.
It's got cream.
Cream is always a good thing.
Cream in
I guess
there,
it's your cream, huh?
It'll be my
Pizza's cream.
And I made a big loaf of sourdough bread yesterday that turned out really good, if I do say so myself. So for those of us not doing keto, we can dip that in our soup
while you're eating it.
I know. I thought, would that be rude for us to put that at the table?
Well, when you take a bite, just go, ugh. Yeah. Ugh, that's gross.
This tastes
terrible.
Just, yeah.
You're not. As I keep eating it.
My second butter. Piece. I don't know.
This homemade butter is awful. Well, they could have some of the butter. You could just give them a spoonful of butter.
Yeah. Gross.
Some people like that. Someone not long ago said that they like to eat butter.
Just eat it.
Just eat it.
That kind of makes me feel a little gaggy.
Yeah.
I know. Remember when people used to put it in their coffee? Maybe people still do that.
I'm sure they do.
Bulletproof coffee. Yeah. Huh. Anyway.
I like the taste of butter, and I like some coffee. I like creamer in my coffee, but I don't know. Never tried it.
I haven't tried it either. I shouldn't knock it till you try it, right?
Well, yeah, I just want my coffee to be sweet. Butter and sugar go good together. So maybe, I don't know.
I was going to tell you, do you remember Holly Bauman? Do you remember meeting
Yeah.
her when you were,
Well,
well,
I've known her since she was a little girl.
oh, that's right. I forgot about that
Yeah.
connection.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay, cool. They had us over for lunch on Saturday, last Saturday. And I'm telling you, she served, well, first of all, she served empanadas. How do you say that word?
Empanadas. There's a
Empanadas.
nya in there.
And yeah, empanadas. She made those and they were really good. But this salad, she served this salad that's the best salad I've ever had in my life. And
Oh,
I feel like it probably had about 50 ingredients in it. And it was so vibrant and colorful. And then she made this topping for it in the blender that had sour cream and mayonnaise, but then it had cilantro and I think some jalapeno and maybe lime juice. I'm not sure what all was in there, but it was the salad itself was chopped romaine lettuce. It was kind of a Mexican slant salad, you know, because it had the beans and the corn and all that. But it also had all these other fresh ingredients, including sliced radishes.
you like those?
Yeah, but and Neil doesn't. He doesn't like them, but he loved them in this salad. And I had put some on my plate, and I thought the bowl that she had it all in was this huge bowl, you know. It was so good. I said I could go eat that whole bowl, you know, just layer on that amazing dressing and just eat that whole bowl. But she shared the recipe with me. So I'll share it in the Looking Up group. It was just so, so good.
What did you say was in the dressing? Cilantro and sour cream and mayonnaise.
And I think lime juice and some jalapeno and some
So that's
spices,
kind of
maybe.
cilantro, lime, jalapeno type.
Mm-hmm.
That's always good.
Mm-hmm.
That Mexican sounds good.
It was great. It was
Was that
great.
the main dish?
No, the empanadas
Mm,
technically were the main dish, but
okay.
and they were good. She made them all from scratch. But that salad was to me the star of the show. It was so good.
Well, they must enjoy cooking because I've heard you talk about his sourdough and
Yeah,
her
yeah.
cooking.
She was sharing with us. She's making a lot more things from scratch and making her own peanut butter, you know, things like
Yeah,
that. So they're such a sweet family.
more power to them.
Yeah. You're not going to make your own peanut butter?
There was probably a time in my life when I would have, but I can't even seem to keep anything in the refrigerator just for John and me to eat. I kept Libby yesterday and on my way home, like going through mentally, what's in my refrigerator? What can we have for dinner? There's sour milk. Sorry, I don't have my fresh cow milk around, but I have some cereal. You know, I didn't even have any fresh bread. So, but you know, when you're in between, like, so we had fishing trip last weekend, and then we're leaving again this weekend. So you don't really want to go to the grocery store and load
You
up
don't
on
want
things
to
because,
stock up. Yeah.
So I tend to just, I feel like we live from meal to meal, figuring out what we're going to do. So stopped and got some smoked chicken from a barbecue restaurant nearby, and we just ate some of that with some crackers and things. So
When you're
story of my life
not
these days.
when you're not traveling, if you can remember that, what that's like, do you shop weekly? Grocery shopping, do you shop weekly or daily or monthly?
Probably
Typically, what do
weekly.
you weekly?
More, I mean, I'm not a very methodical person about grocery shopping, but probably weekly. Why? What do you do?
I do that also.
Yeah.
I just know some people that shop every day, you know,
Yeah.
for
That's
whatever they're
kind of
going
the
to eat that
European way.
day. And then some people that just do like a great big monthly order online or something. So I was
Do you
just
order
curious.
and pick up or do you go in?
I go in.
Have you ever ordered?
Yes, I have done that a few times.
Do you think you spend less money that way or more? I mean, I have my theory, but I'm just curious what you think.
Probably less, I guess,
I
because
think
I'm
I do.
not seeing things in the store and
Right.
then going, oh yeah, I want this, or let's try this, or
But I also forget things when I do that too. So I end up picking up and going inside on the same pickup trip. But sometimes I wonder if they charge a little bit more per item on, because sometimes when I'm looking at the prices, when I'm placing an order and they look a little bit higher, but I don't know. That may not be true.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it.
Well, I don't like for someone to pick out my produce. I want to do that. So
yeah, I want to like it, but I don't. So
mhm.
now I'm back to just going in the store.
Yeah.
And Neil and I usually do it together. It usually ends up Friday's his day off, and it usually ends up being, if he's in town and there's nothing going on, we run our errands together, and we'll hit the grocery store and usually go get feed or whatever we need for farming type stuff. And, that's just our day to do that. So,
yeah, I like routine.
Did you know that we have famous people at Lehman Avenue?
Famous? No.
Yes.
Besides you?
A couple. The Sunday before last, I think I'm right, Harry Potter led the prayer and worship.
Does he have little round glasses? A lightning scar
we
on his
have
forehead?
A Harry Potter place membership here not too long ago.
Well, he was probably Harry Potter a long time before there was a Harry Potter in the literary world.
He was, but he got up and led the prayer, and for some reason it tickled me. So I'm trying to listen to the prayer, but I'm like going, Harry Potter's leading prayer and worship.
I bet that's been a cross for him to bear ever since Harry Potter came out.
I'm sure. He's got a great voice. I loved hearing his voice while he prayed, but anyway.
Is he the one that leads singing? Are they members there, did you say, or no?
Yes. I don't know
you told
anything
me
about.
I remember last year when we were there at some point. You telling me.
That's a different guy. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Ken Ware. He has a beautiful voice. Yeah.
He did.
The other famous person is, have you heard about the new Karen Kingsbury movie? What's the name of it?
Is it a movie or a series?
It's
about
a movie.
The Baxter family.
No. Well, I don't know, but this is a movie. It's the one that she produced herself.
Okay.
I think it's called Someone Like You, based on one of her books. But she wanted to produce it herself so that she could have all control of everything. So it was filmed in Nashville and Alabama. And so one of our members was in, there's a birthday scene. And we had heard that he was in it. And so we thought it's probably one of those things where like somebody says they're in a movie and you just catch a glimpse of their elbow or something. But they actually showed him like half a dozen times because he was standing, there's the two main characters in the birthday cake, and he was standing right behind them in the middle of them. So every time we'd go, there he is again. He's right there. He's facing the screen.
Is it a TV movie or a movie?
No, it's a movie. Like we had to go to the movies to watch it. Monday night we went on a date night and went and saw that movie, and because we heard he was in it. Who
is it?
Art Shannon.
Okay, well, good for him. How did he get the part?
I don't know. One of Dawn Pitcock, I saw her post on Facebook that she went and saw this movie and thought it was really good, and then somebody else commented that he was in that movie, and so Neil and I were like, "What?" And we found out it was the birthday scene. So we were watching for a birthday scene, thinking we were going to have like a nanosecond to try and capture it with our phones, but they just kept showing them over and over again right there.
Who stars in the movie? I haven't even heard anything about this. Something I need to look up.
Yes. I don't know that I am familiar with the main characters. I don't know that I could say that they were in this or that movie.
Yeah. I've read a lot of her books. And I guess there's a mini series or something that's on the Baxter family, which was a long series that she wrote about a family in Indiana, which I've seen. Maybe it's not out yet. Maybe that's something completely different. But
yeah, I've actually only read one of her books because they're heavy topics. And she's a good writer, and I could tell that from reading it. But then when I thought, well, maybe I'll try another one. But they all seem to have, I don't know, something sad about them. And this movie does. It's definitely the storyline, the premise is very sad. Cried at the end. And as we walked out, I told Neil, this is why I don't read her books. I don't really want to read something that's going to make me cry.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I like emotion in books and stuff. But
Yeah.
I wonder, I have to look that up because I haven't heard about it. Well,
Mhm.
Kendra Lucina, you know Kendra because she came with us on the cruise, but she's been
Mhm.
with us 2 other trips too. And she was one of the extras in The Chosen.
Oh,
And when
no
they were
way.
doing crowdfunding, she did part of that. And she was in the feeding of the 5,000 scene. And Judas was the one that fed her, she said. So,
Great.
yeah. So she's been on the set and described it and
Uh,
said she enjoyed it. Yeah.
that's neat.
Mm-hmm. It'd be fun to do something like that.
So now when you come this week, you'll know we have famous people here.
Famous people. I'll be looking
Mhm.
out for
Yeah. Is there
the
anything else you want to
stars.
share before we get into our topic?
I think I'm
No.
done.
Okay. Excuse me for putting on some chapstick. So today we're going to talk about the question, where are you empty? And it's a little bit of an ironic question when you think about it because we live in such a consumer culture. You know, we're always taking in things, buying things, consuming information. You know, it seems like we shouldn't be empty anywhere, but we are. And what made me want to do this topic is a quote that I ran across, and I'm going to read the quote and then we can jump into our conversation. But
Okay.
I felt like it was really powerful, really made me stop and think, and makes complete sense to me. So here is what I found. We know Satan will attack weak spots first. 40 days of fasting left Jesus famished, and Satan began with the topic of bread. Jesus' stomach was empty, so to the stomach, Satan turned. Where are you empty? And some of the examples that it gives, are you hungry for attention, craving success, longing for intimacy? Be aware of your weaknesses and bring them to God before Satan brings them to you. And so I thought that was really good and some good introspection to think about in our own personal lives. We probably each do have empty places. And I know that's true because when we were chatting ahead of time, you and I were talking about the fact that this ended up being an easy topic to start thinking about and brainstorming about because sometimes it's easy to come up with empty places. Where are you empty? The specific examples that the quote gives, you know, being hungry for attention, you can see how that would lead to giving into some things that are temptations that aren't good. Or craving success. What might you do to make that happen? Or longing for intimacy. You know, people that have made sinful choices because they feel like they're empty there and they're not getting what they think they want. You know, so I thought it was a really good question. And along these lines, coincidentally, you know, we've mentioned on here before that Neil and I kind of do the Mediterranean style eating. And the Mediterranean lifestyle defined by Harvard, defined by Harvard, they call it, you know, limited amounts of processed foods, physical activity, rest, and then unscripted time with friends. And, you know, and that caught my attention just because I love that, you know, here's something that has to do with our physical well-being, and they recognize the importance of fellowship, community, belonging, um, you know, making good thoughts and what we bring in. And the reason I bring that up is because when it comes to our, you know, this supposedly the Mediterranean diet or lifestyle has been like the number one healthy lifestyle eating plan, if you will, for several years in a row. And so, and this is what it involves. Well, the reason I'm bringing that up is because for your best physical health, we know that it takes thought and intention, especially when you get to our age. It's not like you can just kind of leave things alone and you're going to be at your best physically. You know, it takes you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your body. And it's not that it's anything ridiculous or difficult or hard. It just takes some forethought. You don't want to neglect these key areas to have good health. And so to me, it's the same thing with spiritual health. You know, where are you empty? Are there some areas that have been neglected that you're just not aware of? Some key areas that you need for good, optimal spiritual health. And I think with whatever, we're each going to be sharing depending on how much time we want to devote to this, 2 or 3 areas that might be an empty place that could lead to temptation. But whatever it is, don't you think that they're all things that probably happen gradually, incrementally? We don't intend to neglect them. We don't intend for them to become empty places.
Mhm.
But it's almost like one day you wake up and you just are. You're parched, you're spiritually starving, you're hungry. You find yourself in a situation, maybe even a sinful situation, and you think, how in the world did I get here?
Mhm.
How in the world did I land here?
Yeah.
I never would have thought I would do this, or this would be me, or, whatever it could be. So that's the premise. That's what we're going to talk about today. And if you want to start out, go ahead.
Yeah. I just thought when you gave me that quote, that was so powerful to me. What bring them to God before Satan brings them to you,
Mhm.
because that implies that we have to be self-aware.
Mhm.
And we've talked about being self-aware before, but it implies that we're willing to dig a little bit and to find out what our weaknesses are. And I think when I was kind of getting ready for this, I didn't use the word empty. I used the word weakness. And it's a little bit different when you were just talking about being empty. Where am I empty? So mine may be a little bit different, but
Okay.
but yet there, I mean, I think it can be synonymous too, empty and weak, because when we are empty physically, we find ourselves weak. And if we are empty spiritually, we will find ourselves weak in that sense as well, spiritually weak. But just the ability to be able to see our own faults, to look for our own faults, and be willing to open ourselves up to some criticism, whether it's our own criticism or if it's from someone else that we trust. It's really super easy to see someone else's weaknesses, because I was just trying to think of some examples. And so I would think of certain people and like, well, I think they have a weakness with this. But then for a little while, thinking about my own, it was a little hard at first to come up with some. And then I started rolling like, oh, this and this and this and this. Yeah. Realizing how many empty and weak spots I have. Excuse me. One of the things that I didn't write down until just now, because when you were talking about empty, it really made me think of this, how I can't be still anymore. I can't just be still. Now, sometimes if I'm out on the deck at night in the evening or whatever, just can sit and just take it in and be still and listen to the crickets chirping and watch the birds flying in and out of the trees. And when I do that, I just feel like taking a deep breath, and it brings peace. But I can't do that very often. It's like sometimes I just get disgusted with myself, because even like if I'm brushing my teeth, my phone is right there and I'm looking at it to see if there's an email or whatever while I'm brushing my teeth. And I think, why do I need to do that? What is lacking in me that I can't just be still and be quiet? I can sit and read a book, but to me, that's not being still and quiet. It's reading something. It's taking things in. So I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that until you used the word empty again, which you told me that earlier, but I was just thinking a little bit differently. So I haven't really analyzed that, and I need to think about that being a weakness and an empty spot, because there's a lot of times, like when I'm with my mom, that I need to just put the phone away and just be there. And it's a little hard for me. That is something I'm aware of when I'm with her. But I don't know, that was something that just kind of hit me a few minutes ago. Like, I need to learn. When and you even have said something. Didn't Neil have a class not long ago? He mentioned it at some point about the discipline of quiet or something like that. Did he teach a class on that?
Yes.
So I need to
Yeah,
listen to that.
and I'll just, if I may, interrupt you a little bit and go ahead
Counsel me.
with my no with my very first one, because
Mhm.
I think you're saying the same thing, you just worded it differently. The very first one that I put, because I think I wrestle with this, is rest. And I think that that's a place that we can be empty and struggle with. And a Elizabeth Elliot is one of my favorite people to quote from. And she said that rest is a weapon given to us by God. The enemy hates it because he wants us to be stressed and occupied. And I think that we have been so conditioned, we've talked about this before, but busyness is almost glorified. You're a successful person if you're busy, and people say, how are you? Oh, so busy. Oh, but I feel like we've almost conditioned ourselves that if we do take that moment, like you said, to go out on the back deck and just enjoy that deck and that chair and the stars and the moment, or, just be in the moment and take it in, we feel guilty, like we're wasting time and that we should be doing something else. You're talking about brushing your teeth and checking your phone. I think we've conditioned ourselves, well, I may be sitting here, but I should be answering these messages or working on this article or, doing this work project, or because I can multitask. And I just wonder if we've kind of conditioned ourselves to think that rest is not good. You only do that when you go to bed at night.
Yeah.
And that if you're doing that, you're wasting time. And I thought about in Matthew 26, verses 36 and following, we're at the Garden of Gethsemane scene. And, Jesus takes his inner circle, if you will, in with him and says, I'm going to go pray. You watch for me. It's Peter, James, and John. And it talks about how he went back to pray. Of course, he comes out. They're sleeping because they're so tired. And he says, could you not even watch with me for 1 hour? And so Jesus goes back in to pray again. He comes back out. They're sleeping. Anyway, this happens 3 times. That Jesus goes in, prays, comes back out, they're sleeping, and the Bible says, for their eyes were heavy. And that's where Jesus says that phrase that we use all the time, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And, I think he understood. I mean, it sounds like there's a little bit of a reprimand there. Could you not have, watched with me for 1 hour? But I think he understood. Yeah. And, he says, watch and pray lest you enter into temptation, get back to watching and praying. But they were exhausted. And here they are, Jesus needs some time alone to pray. They love him. They've been following him. They're close to him, but they're exhausted. And they just couldn't keep their eyes open. And it was a simple task that he asked of them. And they couldn't do it because they were so tired. And I just wonder, how often do we, get to that point where even the simple tasks that Jesus asks of us seem like a big deal? We've over committed, we've filled our schedules, we've filled our calendars. We always feel like you say, when is that be still moment? And why is it when it does happen, it's like this rare commodity? Why isn't it a part of our daily routine, self-care, spiritual care, whatever you want to call it? It seems like temptations can come on awfully strong when we're weary and when we're tired. And so that was the very first thing that came to my mind, is sometimes we overextend ourselves, and that's where we're empty. We don't take the time to rest, to have quietness, to be in the moment, or whatever we need to strengthen ourselves. And then temptations come, and
I feel like when I try, I'm distracted. Like I try to be still, or it's a problem in 2 areas that I can think of right off the top of my head. If I'm trying to study, and just the ability to focus, and it helps if I shut down everything in my browser, but I still want to use my internet for whatever. But if I am not super self-disciplined, then I find myself, I just need a minute, check my email or whatever. It's like my mind is racing all the time. So that's a problem there, just trying to focus on something and study. And then in prayer, because I may be praying in my mind, I'm trying to be still, like you're talking about the disciples, Jesus wanting them to just watch. And my mind gets to going. If I'm praying about something, then I start thinking, and I don't beat myself up about that, because I know that God knows what's on my heart and my mind, and it's important to him because it's important to me, but I still just feel like it's a discipline that that I really need to work on. And I'm not sure how.
Yeah, and I wonder if more stillness and rest would lead to more thoughtful prayer. I feel like even if we don't really have a good soaking tub in this house. I do miss that. But so I don't soak in the tub anymore. But if I did, I'd probably be listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
I'd probably think
Multitasking.
there's several podcasts that are covering topics I'm really interested in, good things I'm trying to learn or whatever. I love to do that. Even when I'm walking for exercise, I'm typically listening to a podcast. And, I should have those moments where I don't need noise. I don't need something else coming in. I just need to be quiet, like you say, and rest. And I feel like if I discipline myself enough to do that, my mind would kind of automatically get prayerful because I'd have time for that. I'd have time to just think and be. And then when I talk to God about the thinking and being, but instead, I'm always multitasking. And even those, I used to think it was because, oh, we're just gone, we're traveling, we have all these commitments, blah, blah, blah. But even if that's not it, I think it becomes such a habit that even when you do have time that you're in town or you are home, you're feeling it. I'm working on this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And this was just, maybe people thrive in that, and that brings out the best in them. I'm sure that can be a personality thing, but I know it's not for me. And that this was the first thing that came to my mind because I think it's the thing that I wrestle with very much on a practical basis, daily basis.
Well, just thinking about maybe I'm trying to think when I'm not being still, but when my mind is still, which I think is the issue, not my body, but my mind.
Right.
And it's when I'm on my bike and just thinking about, I'm moving and I'm seeing, but I think when I'm on the bike, usually we're not in traffic because we don't go places like that, but I'm looking around at creation and I'm hearing the noises and I'm feeling the wind. And that's probably something that I need to do more of. So maybe it's just finding a place where maybe because my body is occupied with moving but I'm not like having to think about it. Like I'm not, I don't know how to describe it, but I guess that is probably the most still my mind is when I'm riding my bike. That's kind of an interesting revelation to me. I hadn't thought about it because most other times, even walking, I'm listening to music or something. I just don't do that on the bike because I know you're supposed to be aware of your surroundings. So maybe you just need to find a place where you can rest.
When you bring that up, it makes me think of the beach, when you go to the ocean, I think you end up leaving feeling so restful, of course, because of the ions, but because you're so in awe of the beautiful ocean that you're focusing on that. Typically you're not, I guess you could be, but we don't listen to other things or we don't bring work, to the ocean. We're just taking it in and we're just soaking it all in. And you're just kind of forcing yourself to just be still, enjoy the moment, take it in. So you're right. Maybe you just need to identify an environment or place that you can retreat to or get to, not something that you have to go off and do maybe, but
what I'm hearing us say is that we need to go to the beach more and we need to ride our bikes more.
Yes and yes.
Well, yeah, that's you. Some of those things you have to plan out. You have to be intentional about. We always talk about being intentional, but I think everything about our life, we have to be intentional. So scheduling, I even hate saying that, scheduling time to rest. But I've read quotes that say that the devil works in noise and distraction. And I see that in my own life. So, just my frustration level when there's too much going on, I can see that the devil is in that and making me not want to do any of it because I'm just so frustrated with all of the noise and distraction. So, yeah, interesting.
I'm wondering if I can turn the kitchen into my place because I find that relaxing and enjoyable. And, you know, yesterday I was working with bread and I was roasting a chicken, and that's kind of my favorite meal. It kind
Mm-hmm.
of brings out all the vibes in me of just like I don't know, it makes me feel good. I enjoy preparing that meal.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I've usually got a podcast or something going.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if I just, you know, lit a couple of candles and kept things
Music.
quiet and enjoyed maybe some relaxing music, but just enjoyed the process, but didn't fill my mind with other things where I felt like I was multitasking. And then I could have that opportunity to just think or pray or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, thinking about this too, at some point, if we live long enough, it's that decision will be taken from us, you know,
Mm,
where, and I've seen this in our parents, where you can't move around to do things. And so
mm,
pretty much all you're doing is sitting and thinking. So
mm-hmm.
I guess when I think about that, I don't take for granted that I can move around now, but I don't, I probably need to, I know I need to be more thoughtful about just taking time to be still, be quiet, rest, think about what God wants me to think about instead of just always being busy with something.
All right, what you got?
Well, I just always feel like I'm outing myself here, but um
Oh, goody.
well, I mean, I told you I had like 14 different things that I could bring up, but one thing that I'll just mention that this doesn't really count because I told John on our way home from Bear Valley, I told him, you know, I learned something about myself when I was packing up my office is that I liked having a title,
Mm,
you know, this Dean of Women thing, even
yeah.
though it wasn't really, you know, any huge deal, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a title. So it made me
Mm-hmm.
feel sort of important. And that's kind of, it really is embarrassing for me to say that
No,
because I've never had that
I
before.
went through that also.
Did you?
Yes, I
That's
did.
good to know. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised that because we tend to think about things the same, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it it was like, oh, I didn't have this identity crisis of who am I now, but it's a little gratifying when someone says, "What do you do?" And I was able to say, "Well, I would always because did I work with Terry Autry with the women at Bear Valley Bible Institute as Dean of Women." And it just was a little gratifying to have that because
Mm-hmm.
I guess in the world, people measure your success by what you say you do. So when that was coming to an end, I kind of had to have a little thought session with myself, like why is this bothering me? And it wasn't, I didn't lose any sleep over it, but it was just kind of an eye-opening thing about myself that I enjoyed that for the 4-ish years that I did it. And I know I didn't do it for the wrong reason. I didn't do it for the title. I enjoy doing what I did because of the women, um but it just kind of made me think, is that an empty spot that I have of not feeling like I've accomplished something or not feeling like I um matter if I don't have a title, which is ridiculous because I know that's not the truth. So that's kind of a where am I empty, maybe is a little bit empty in the feeling. Maybe it's a self-image or I don't know. What do you think? I need you to analyze me.
Oh, my second one. Everybody's gonna think we actually did
No.
coordinate this ahead of time. My second one is worth and confidence.
Oh, okay. That's it.
That's that's what I
Self-worth,
came up with. Yeah,
self-confidence.
it's this is scary, really, because I was thinking about when we feel empty in these places, and at first I had them as two separate things, and then I thought I think they're kind of the same thing.
Mhm.
And you know, with our sense of worth, you know, maybe it could be something that we struggle with from our past, some hangover, guilt, or poor choices or whatever. And self-confidence, you know, if we feel, we talked about this a little bit last week, but you feel a little bit insecure or when am I ever going to get there?
Mhm.
When am I going to arrive, you know, and
Yeah.
my confidence level or whatever it might be. Low self-esteem. I think that emptiness can kind of lead to feelings that, you know, I don't really even want to say these out loud, but it kind of can lead to feelings of, I wrote down words like feeling unloved, unwanted, not good enough. um you know, maybe as you get older you start feeling a has-been or
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant, like getting passed over for somebody younger, things like that can we can start feeling those empty kind of feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, and it leaves us feeling vulnerable emotionally. So that's what I wrote down there. And so how can that emptiness lead to temptation? This is kind of the thrust that I was taking with all of these, where are your empty
Mm-hmm.
places and how could Satan use that against us? Well, I think that vulnerability can make us, it affects how we view others.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm saying me
Comparison.
when I say we, yes. That insecurity can make us gossip about others, be overly critical, be judgmental of others. It can keep us from rejoicing with those who rejoice, being happy for somebody else's success or good, bright moments. Can make us struggle with bitterness toward others. It can make us do jealousy, comparison thing, as you mentioned, and none of these are good. They're not. The Bible has something to say about them, but they're not good for us either. So it's kind of that vicious cycle thing. They're all unrighteous. And so for that one, I was thinking about all the women that we have recorded Jesus interacting with and how he transformed them. And, think about some of their backgrounds, but he treated them with respect, even though many of them came out of sinful lifestyles or were currently involved in sinful lifestyles, but his interaction with them showed them their worth and that he loved them and what he wanted for them. And his respect transformed them, transformed their lives. So that's kind of where I thought this is that self introspection that's just uncomfortable, and so I was trying to think, empty places, and what are my weaknesses that I feel like I'm regularly giving into temptation with, things that I might be struggling with, and what's at the root of that is really what this is all about. And so when you figure that out, this is what's at the root of that. This is that empty place or weakness, as you were calling it. Then it gives us an opportunity to, because we're aware of it, address it, shore it up, feed it, fill it, whatever we need to do, and call it like it is. See it for what it is. Maybe we're real good at excusing some of these things instead of recognizing our part in it. The only reason I'm even feeling this way toward that person really falls back on me and what I'm dealing with in my own life.
Yeah. I find myself, I think, not wanting to open my mouth around people who are accomplished, or as the world sees them as accomplished, because I feel like I'm going to expose myself as being not very smart or whatever. And again, I'm maybe making more out of this than it really is, but I guess I want to matter, but I have to figure out to who. Like, does it matter if I matter to someone that doesn't know me, who is the CEO of some corporation? If what I say has any bearing on how he or she thinks about things. And that doesn't really bother me a whole lot, I guess. But when I think about my mother-in-law, I can't remember if she graduated high school or not. They got married really young. She was 17. And I think that she was pretty self-conscious. She was very self-conscious about that. And during her whole life, pretty sure she didn't graduate. Grady, John's dad, he likes to say that he graduated 16th in his class of 17 people. So, he jokes about that. But so, by the world standards, he was not an educated man, but he was one of the smartest, most intelligent men in the world by far. So when I feel a little bit like unaccomplished, whatever, I think about my in-laws, because I think about what Grady managed to do. And it didn't necessarily have anything to do with the world, but it had everything to do with my husband's soul and the way he grew up, and how many people and souls did my father-in-law touch. And it had nothing to do with education or anything that this world might recognize. It had to do with the fact that he was a Christian and he was a good, honorable man. So I think that that has helped me over the years to not feel bad about myself as far as my education, lack of education, whatever, and being comfortable in knowing that I'm a child of God. And what exactly does that mean? It might not mean anything to the world, but you just kind of have to get to a point where that doesn't really matter. And what does matter is that knowing that God values me. But all that being said, I still, there's that empty spot in you when you hear things in the world about, you see someone which they have a PhD behind their name.
Yeah.
And I always respect people who have one and you don't know it. And I just found out someone this week, a friend that you and I both know, had no idea she had a PhD. And but when you see their accomplishments behind their name or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have that, it makes me feel a little bit empty.
Mm-hmm.
But not for very long. And I hope that whoever's listening, if you feel empty in these areas, that you realize where your worth comes from is not a piece of paper with initials on it, or that's just, those are worldly things and they do some good, but it's not what really matters. So I guess I just talked myself through it. I feel better now.
This is the only reason we do this podcast.
Yeah. So we'll feel better.
For you and me.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like what you said is really the answer to all these things that we might be coming up with or might be talking about. You're thinking about like the bio. I want my bio to look good and sound good, but then you compare it to, the name right above mine. Her bio has all these cool things next to it. And I'm like, well, I like to read books and I like to cook in my kitchen and I like to drink my cow Peach's milk.
It's especially exciting when you say it just like that.
But, and we know that is strictly not essential, not even what matters or what's important. I remember it was either a lesson or something, but not too long ago, talking about like the mom in the home and what the pressure that moms can sometimes put on ourselves to have that, sort of importance or fulfillment. And my whole life is tied up in my home and my kids right now. And where's my thing, and overall at the end of the day, or at the end of our life, when the people that we leave behind in our homes are looking back and, they're at our funeral or, what's going to make them miss us in that moment is our love and joy that we bring to that home.
A great point.
Tenderness, joyfulness, compassion, those kinds of things. And none of it is going to be anything else. As good as they might be, as ambitious as they might be, and there's nothing wrong with those things or acquiring those things, but at the end of it all, the only thing that matters and the only thing that people think about or miss is how we've impacted other people's lives.
Yeah, good point. But I think when I look around the congregations, sometimes I'll sit there and think the most beautiful woman in this room is not someone that the world would classify as a beautiful woman, but she's beautiful because of the grace that she exudes and the love that she has for other people. And so that fills me up, talking about empty and full, that fills me up to know that the world standards are so different than God's standards. And if we stop to think about it, what's the most important thing? And it has nothing to do with an accomplishment in the world, unless it has something to do with accomplishing for God. And in that case, we wouldn't even be pointing to ourselves. We'd be giving the glory to God. So anyway.
Well, let the record show you are a very accomplished person, by the way. And I think a lot of people would agree with me as far as everything that you do and the lives you touch and all of your talents. And just so you know.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have another one?
I mean, I have several more. How we're at about 50 minutes, so we could probably do another one, you think?
Yeah.
I think here, let me just read. Impatience, complaining,
Oh, impatience.
being critical of others, a need to be needed. That's an emptiness right there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's a good one.
And if it ever makes you feel uncomfortable that someone that you have helped in the past has turned to someone else for help and you're not happy about it, that I think that indicates a lack of something, an empty spot. And that's one that I've struggled with. I think I've managed to get past most of that, but
don't worry, I will never stop coming to you with my complaints.
I was worried about that. Thanks. I'm glad to know that. But I mean, a need to be needed. That's
yeah, that's a good one.
You think someone like when you're mothering, and if I don't have a daughter, but I've had other people's daughters come to me and I've had different reactions. Some mothers resent that, and some mothers say, oh, I'm so glad that she feels comfortable to talk to you about this, because some things you just can't talk to your own mother about. So I don't know. Is that something we need to explore or just move on?
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
I think that's a topic sometime.
I do too.
Okay.
The need to be needed.
So the only other one that I'll mention is an empty spot might sometimes be, I think when I was thinking of these, I was trying to figure out where are some areas of conflict in my life, because that would indicate an empty spot. And one of them is John's attention. And that, what I have found in self-analyzing is that, to me, any attention is better than no attention. And not that he doesn't give me no attention, but at some point, like, if I'm mad at him and that gets his attention, then I guess that's such a childish thing.
Poke.
Yes. Poke. Yeah. Poke. He's not a bear, but yeah. But I've had to figure that out. I've had to analyze that over the years. Like, you need attention, and maybe you can't get it right now. And so I'm not content to wait for it in a positive way. And so I get angry, and that gets his attention, not positive attention. So that's that would be an empty area.
It's like when you
even after 37 years.
But I miss you, and I want you to give me some attention, and I want you to like me, and I want you to want to be with me. It's like that whole, I can feel
while myself. You're whining, and while the little hedgehog spikes come out.
Yeah, whiny and needy, and so is that not ironic? Yeah. And then your husband's like, yes, this is working. This is making me definitely want to be with you.
Yeah. Let me see. Have an appointment. Got to see you later.
Now I'm resenting you for bringing this out in me. It's your fault.
Ouch. That hurt. You're stepping on my toes.
Well, I don't know anything about that.
Okay. It's only because I've confessed these things to you, right?
No. Definitely been there, done that. Well, I think we have to give a nod to God's word. That's kind of a duh, but
yeah, it is a duh.
That's just another one of those where time might go by, we don't realize we haven't really spent time soaking in God's word, and it becomes an emptiness. And that's where we go for strength and guidance and the shield against the tempter. And so if we are empty there, then obviously that's going to leave us open to temptation. But the last one I'll share is, and I kind of gave a nod to this a few minutes ago, but I thought of joy. And sometimes it seems like, this is going to sound like a very negative statement, but sometimes it seems like from every different direction, the main objective is to steal your joy. Whether it's what you're being exposed to or witnessing or hearing on the news or, seeing on social media or even our own.
That's a thief right there of every kind of joy, huh?
Yes. Our own inner critic. Things aren't going the way we want them to, or whatever. It just seems like sometimes there's all this stuff coming in. And again, it's a matter of intention, but if we're empty there and we're not joyful, think about what that can lead to, and the temptations that we can get. You mentioned complaining. I think complaining is, it'd be hard to be joyful
Mm-hmm.
and complaining at the same time, and I think when we're intentional, I'm waking up this morning, I choose to rejoice. I choose to rejoice in my salvation. This means that other people are going to see it on my face. They're going to hear it in my words. And with that intentional joyfulness is going to come things like gratitude, you know, um, contentment, instead of complaining or always having something negative to say, always dragging things down, and I'm saying this to you fully recognizing that the hour that we talked before we hit record,
Mm-hmm.
I can probably go back and think of all the negative things that I shared with you, but how easy it is to become empty there when, if we actually intentionally tried being joyful and having a rejoice in the Lord, mentality, what a difference that would make. And it doesn't rely on circumstances. I'm not saying that, if you're currently going through a hardship, you shouldn't be crying about it. Obviously, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that can so easily become an empty place. And it's felt in your home. It's felt if you're married in your marriage. It's felt by all the people who are in your sphere of influence and in your circle that
Mm-hmm.
God has put in your life. That emptiness is felt by everybody around you, not just you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about the passage that doesn't exactly fit what you're talking about, but it sort of does. When the unclean, in Matthew chapter 12, when the unclean spirit goes out of a man, passes through waterless places, seeking rest, does not find it. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. When it comes, it finds it unoccupied, swept, and put in order. But then it goes and takes along with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself. And they go in and live there. And the last state of that man becomes worse than the first. And how, if you're talking about joy, when we're empty of joy, all of these other things are going to sweep in, and we might add bitterness. It's not just lack of joy anymore, but it's bitterness, complaining, and finding negative things about every other person around us. And so when we don't say, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling this lack of joy, or whatever we want to call it, what am I going to do about that? I've got to be intentional to feel that. And like you're talking about with the word, if we haven't soaked in the word, if we haven't been in the word, if we haven't made ourselves look for some positive things that are going on around us, if we haven't stopped to pray and talk to God about it, if we have not looked around and smelled the roses, something simple like that, if we can't make ourselves do those things to stop and smell the roses, I know that's a cliche thing to say, but what do you do when you stop and smell the roses? You bend over and you look at this created thing that God created just for beauty, for us to see, for us to smell, for us to enjoy. And I think focusing on something as simple as, which is really complex, as God's creation, causes us to have joy, because God cares about us and created those things for me, and internalize it. And not just internalize it, but when you see it as me, this is about me. It's not just about this world, but God cares about me. And he knows what I'm thinking. He knows what is hurting me right now. He puts my tears in his bottle. And that, that we might sweep things out of our mind and clean the house, as it were. But are we filling it back in with empty. Those good things? So I think we've got to do that.
That's the perfect passage for this conversation. That was excellent. And, we always hear that complaining leads to finding more things to complain about, but surely the opposite is true, that being joyful leads to finding more things to be joyful about. If you're creating that mindset. And, maybe you are just in a really difficult period of life. You're in the middle of a hardship or a trial, something horrible has happened and upended your world.
Mhm. Yeah. And it happens.
It does. Sorry. But if that's the case and it's hard, then we can make it our objective to bring joy to somebody else. If you're finding it hard to be joyful, find a way to put a little joy in somebody else's day.
Mhm.
And I think it'll, as it always does, because God knows what he's doing, it'll come back around and bless you anyway.
And don't joyful people make you want to be around them?
Mm-hmm.
And they draw and attract other joyful people. And I think when you're around a joyful person or a positive person, a loving person, they inspire you to be that way.
Yeah.
So surround yourself. Maybe that's one of the things that in fact, I think it really is when we sweep our house clean of people that we don't need to be around and influences that we don't need, and fill them back up with people that we need and influences that we need. And I think it goes to say that we've got to be that person ourselves. We can't just expect to be around these people and let them fill us up without knowing that we're going to have to do our own share of filling others up.
Yeah.
But
and when you think about those people that names came to my mind right away. They're people that are involved in other people's lives. They're servants.
Yeah.
They're just rolling up their sleeves and serving other people humbly. Mm-hmm. And maintaining that sweet smile through it all. I think I've shared this on here before, but you said one time that if you haven't experienced joy in service, maybe you need to do some more serving.
Mm-hmm. Well, those people you're talking about, they've had, because I know some that you would talk about, they've had their own trials and struggles.
Yeah.
And, they probably had some rotten attitudes through them. Mm-hmm. And had to talk themselves down off of the cliff, mm-hmm. as it were.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all been there. But there's a difference between a person that does talk themselves down and someone who wallows in it. And, mm-hmm. That's your choice. Yeah. So.
I was just going to share real quick. I did a Bible marking called Be Filled. Mm-hmm. And I thought, since this is talking about where are you empty, that I'll share the link to that. But some of the things that the Bible says that we should be filling our empty homes with, a nod to that verse you mentioned, are things like amazement. That one surprised me. Mm-hmm. Fill our hearts with amazement and joy, spiritual wisdom. So there's a whole list of verses in that Bible marking topic that maybe if this is something that, we're wrestling with, that might be a good personal devotional place to start. Maybe take one verse at a time, one filling at a time, and focus on that, pray about that, just to see if that helps a little bit.
And by the way, I ran into something. It was just an advertisement on some social media somewhere. It was called an emotion wheel. And it was being sold like a sticker, but I can show you because I took a screenshot of it. If you're watching, you can see. Mm-hmm. And I'll see if I can find one that I can post next week, but without buying it, because I'm sure there's a free one somewhere. But so when you're feeling this way, there's around the inside of the wheel, there's mad, afraid, sad, happy, calm, and strong. So say you're feeling mad, and what is it in that mad sphere that I'm feeling? Is it hurt? If so, read this verse. If you're feeling hateful, read 1 John 4:19 and 20. If you're feeling critical, read Ephesians 4:29. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I resist a little bit of that proof texting kind of thing, because you're just pulling something out and you're not really paying attention to the context. But sometimes, in fact, I would say every time, it's not going to hurt you to read a Bible verse and think about, because it brings you back to scripture. Mm-hmm. You might not be doing this exegetical study about Ephesians 4, but you're reading a passage that's telling you, bring into your mind, this is not something I need to be thinking about. Let every word that comes out of my mouth be filled with grace. Yeah. And not just my mouth, but in my mind. Let every word that I have in my mind be filled with grace. Ugh. So
that's not what it says. That'd be hard.
Yeah.
It looks like a color wheel.
Yeah, it does.
Are the colors coordinating to the emotions? Like
mad is red.
Yeah, I was thinking
Happy is
angry
green.
colors and
Strong is orange.
I
Yeah,
like
so
that. And I think almost if you took that as a tool and say you're not really sure where you're empty, but you sort of documented, but I keep going back to this anger.
yeah, that's a good idea.
And if you have, maybe document, well, today I felt angry and I read this verse. Well, the next day I felt angry and I read this,
Mhm.
if there are certain things that you keep going back to, that might be a little cue to some of your empty places.
You might have a problem with this.
Yes.
Well, I liked it too because sometimes you don't know exactly what's wrong. You just know you're mad. So it kind of gives you, okay, is it hurt, hateful, critical, frustrated, annoyed, jealous, and narrows it down a little bit. And just, I think anytime you can kind of pinpoint what the problem is, what's the root of it, what can I do about this? It makes you slow down, back away, and just take a deep breath. So I liked it.
I
I thought it
think
was neat.
labeling it like that would be a little bit sobering for me.
Yeah.
I just know that I'm mad.
Mhm.
But if I have to take the time to figure out, is it because I'm, any of those things, those don't sound good.
Yeah.
I don't really want to acknowledge what's causing me to be mad. So
Maybe
it
it would
might
be
kind of
good
make you sit up
on
and take
our
notice.
Yeah, on our color wheel, we need to have hurt ugly, hateful ugly, critical ugly, frustrated ugly.
That's right.
So we just have that reminder that this makes you ugly.
Yeah.
It's fact of life, but I think we can do what we can to control it. Don't tell John I said that.
Well, to our listeners, if you have gotten this far with us, thank you. And if you don't mind sharing, we'd love to hear from you guys on your thoughts. Do I have black in my eyes?
A little bit. I
Oh,
was trying to be discreet.
thanks. If you could share with us maybe some of your empty places if you want to, we'd love to hear that, or some of your thoughts on this topic. Anything that's helped you, scriptures that you have found helpful. We always love hearing from you. Check out our Facebook page, Looking Up with Kathy and Carla. Do you have something good for us? Oh, actually, I know you do, and I'm going to go first.
Okay, go first.
Okay, so mine is a couple of YouTube channels that are by members of the church, but they're homestead YouTube channels. So anybody out there who's also interested in things like gardening and sourdough and all these kinds of things, check out these two. One of them is by Christy Huntsman. She's the
From the Roots
editor of
Up.
Yes, Come Fill Your Cup. She lives in Oklahoma. Her YouTube channel is called From the Roots Up, and they cover all kinds of things from like grinding your own wheat and seeds and just all kinds of stuff. They haven't been doing it very long. They already have almost 9,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible. The other one is Martin and Julianne Johnson. Martin Johnson. They're in Idaho, and they have one called Off Grid Living. And he also has a Bible one, so you can check that out. I just didn't write the name, and so now I can't remember what it is. But they have 462,000 subscribers.
Cool.
Yeah. So they're doing things like building their own greenhouse, and I just ran across theirs, and I was like, they're members of the church. They're Christians. Yeah. So anyway, that's my check them out. Yeah, that's my something good for you. What's yours?
Now mine feels kind of silly, but okay. What do you think this is?
That is a lint roller.
No.
That is a face smoother outer. It's to get rid of the jowls on your chin.
I wish.
That's to get rid of the tension on your forehead.
Well, you probably could with this thing, but that's not what it is.
That is I don't know what it is. What is it?
It is
a fancy
heel callus remover.
Gross.
I knew you would think it's gross, but this thing is awesome.
Does it hurt?
No, it's a roller with like sandpaper. And I don't know.
That's better than what they use. You go get a pedicure.
I mean, you could get rid of some wrinkles and some jowls, but you'd also have some blood probably.
Can you take that to somebody else's face? You got a wrinkle. You got a scowl on your forehead. Let me get that for you.
Let me take care of that for you. No.
All right. How's that work?
It's just like a roller, like what, I don't know if you have trouble with your heels, but in the summertime when I wear sandals all the time, my heels are gross. And I hate that because I like them to be smooth and, like they used to be when I was 15. So it's just it's just like a callus remover, but instead of you having to do it like a fingernail file kind of thing, it does it for you because it rolls, it rotates. You're looking at it like gross, but it really is
I was
great.
just wondering, how do you clean it?
Oh, this thing pops off.
Oh, do you wash it?
This thing pops off, and so you can rinse it out. Yeah, you rinse it off and then pop it back on. But I loved it because now it was super easy and fast. I know it's a little bit gross, but if you have a heel issue, this is your new best friend.
Just and I was so excited. For summer. Very good.
Yes. And I actually ordered it back in the winter and I haven't used it until this week. And when I did, I was like, I love it. And I thought, this is my something good for this week. Yeah, it's just Amazon. It's like $20 on Amazon.
Trust issues with you though.
Why?
Because you told me about the nose trimmer. You said it wouldn't hurt.
It's not supposed to hurt, Kathy. Did you do it wrong?
I must have.
I hope you didn't get an infection and just in time for a
quip. All right. Anyways, I hope nobody's listening to this right before lunch. You're welcome.
Sorry.
Come back for more.
Just don't let us look up your nose.
Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing you in a few days. Yes. And until then,
looking at.
Love you, friend.
Love you too. Talk to you soon. Bye.